Hi, everyone, and welcome back. Welcome back to my channel. I am so happy to be here with another teaching under the Deep School of Revelation. All right, I want to just say hello to everyone. Tonight, we are going to dive into Cain and Abel. Cain and Abel. And I guess my dog here, he wants some shine. Onyx, can we get out the way so I can start? Okay, he just wants to sit there. All right. So we're taking a look at Cain and Abel, and this is what I think is one of the most important ancient scenarios when it comes to narcissism. And we are also going to introduce the teaching on the serpent seed, which I mentioned sometime this previous week when I did a video about that one. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, here we have the presentation. Of course, it's brought to you by me, Dr. Abby, or Dr. Yaya Marie, as people know me from TikTok. And I'm just so happy to be here. I'm happy to see everyone here tonight. And make sure that you put in the chat where you're watching from. And, you know, let's just be more active in the chat. Make sure you like and subscribe. And make sure that you are actually paying attention, because this is an actual teaching, okay? You're getting all of this information freely, just as it was freely given to me. I want to pass on this information, and it is for people who are interested in the deeper studies, deeper things, okay? You're done with being on milk and baby formula, and now you want meat. You want to understand the deeper things of the Bible, okay? And also how it relates to your life, right? So let's get started. So here we have just the beginning of the PowerPoint. On it, no. And of course, it wouldn't be, right if the dog didn't just start chewing on things right about now. All right, now, so Cain and Abel were the sons of Adam and Eve, as we know, according to the book of Genesis in the Bible. They were the first children born to the first human couple. That's just the basics. Cain and Abel were the sons of Adam and Eve. Everybody got that? Yes, we got it. Make sure you if you want to, take screenshots or, take pictures of this, and also research in your own time. And some of the things that I will be reading is from the PowerPoint, of course, as you see right here. And some things are also I'm going to be reading from my actual book, When Satan Plays Matchmaker, Exploring the Spiritual Side of Narcissism, which is available on Amazon. And I do have a chapter that goes a lot in depth in this type of teaching, okay? So Cain and Abel were both farmers who made offerings. They both made offerings to God. Abel's offering was acceptable, but Cain's was not. And it's important to note that Cain was the firstborn, but we have to take a look at how, when you're giving an offering, it had to be the best. It had to be the best, especially in these Old Testament days before the Messiah was born in the flesh. Your offering had to be spotless. It had to be without any flaws. Okay. So Cain and Abel were both set to give offerings. Cain, really, his offering was not accepted because his offering was flawed. He thought that he can go and give God anything and it would be accepted. No, God has standards, right? So Abel's offering was accepted, but Cain's was not. Even though Cain was the firstborn, but his offering was not up to par with how it should have been. And we know a lot of people miss that. They miss that right there, because people wonder, why was Cain's offering not accepted, but Abel's was? Is because Cain's offering was not up to par. It was not good enough. It didn't have it didn't reach those standards as they were supposed to reach when giving an offering. It wasn't flawless. It wasn't perfect. Okay, but Abel's was. And it is important to note that Cain was the firstborn, but his offering was still not accepted. Okay. So In Genesis 4, 2-5, we see how Cain becomes angry. His face, he's looking sad. He's, he's feeling, sad that his offering was not rejected. See, what he wanted was the Most High Creator of the universe to just accept anything. That is what he thought it would happen, but it doesn't work like that. So you see the entitlement with Cain. Do you see the need to be accepted even though you didn't follow directions? What does that sound like to you? Now, the Lord says to Cain, why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? Which means, why are you looking like that? Why are you sad? In bold, you see, if you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at the door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it. This is extremely important because God himself, even with Cain's flawed offering, he's still asking Cain, what's wrong with you? If you do what you're supposed to do, you'll be accepted. If you don't, then you won't. Those are the rules. It's not like, God is going to go back and say, you know what, let me just tweak this because of Cain's feelings. It doesn't work like that. And you can see, even though Cain was, he gave an offering that was less than perfect, God is still trying to work with Cain and try to steer him to do right. But there's something about Cain that I want you to realize. Notice that the text says, if you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not what is right, sin, look in the bold letters that's underlined, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it. Meaning, Cain in his nature, how he was, how he was as a person, his nature was prone to do wrong. That's what it means when sin is crouching at the door. Notice he didn't say this to Abel. He didn't say that. He said it to Cain because Cain had to fight to do what is right constantly because his nature was built unlike Abel, unlike his brother, or I will explain, half brother. Why do I say that? So if you're seeing sin is crouching at the door, but if you do what's right, meaning if you overcome it, if you fight these urges that you have within yourself to do wrong, if you fight them, you'll be accepted. Cain had to fight his urges. His nature was a highly corrupt or entitled, or you could even say narcissistic. His nature was not like his brother. That is why sin was always at his door, but he had the tools to master it, as you can see. If you do what is right, everybody has free will. If you do what's right, you will be accepted. You have that choice. He had that choice. I hope everyone is understanding. Please give me a 1 in the chat if you're understanding, please, because this is so profound. This is so important. Now, why did Cain have this nature about him where he was prone to do wrong, where he had to fight to do right? What was in his DNA? What was in his nature? Well, let's take a look. We have to remember that Cain and Abel were the sons of Adam and Eve before the fall of man. Okay, before the after the fall of man, after Eve and Adam fell from eating the fruit, which was not necessarily eating. Okay, we use eating because in those days when the text like this was being written, it wasn't appropriate to say what was really going on in the garden. Okay, but let's take a look at the text. So the Lord said to the serpent, talking to the serpent, because you have done this, cursed are you above all livestock and above all beasts of the field. All on the belly you shall go, and dust you shall eat all the days of your life. I will put enmity, meaning hostility, between you and the woman, and between your offspring, talking to the serpent, and her offspring. Those are two different offsprings. Those are two different seeds, two different children. Does everybody understand that? Are we with each other? A lot of people reject this, and I don't understand how, because if it's in the Bible and it's saying her seed and another person's offspring, that's what it is. I mean, even if it sounds far-fetched, you have to get away from that way of thinking of magical talking snakes. When you're thinking about the snake and the serpent, you're going back to that original Hebrew word, which was the meaning of it meant illuminated one, the light one. Okay, so basically you had, if you read it in its originality, the light, the illuminated one, Satan, came to Eve, had offspring with her, took of the fruit. A lot of times women's parts or, private areas were described as a fruit. Now, why would the Most High God say your offspring and her offspring if there was no type of reproduction going on? It wouldn't make sense if this was an apple fruit. It doesn't make sense. So you have two different offsprings. And the Most High God said, I will put enmity between you, the woman, between your offspring, talking to the snake, and her offspring. Everybody understand that? Let's move on. That's in Genesis 3. And then, of course, there's also other curses that went on with the snake and the woman, having painful childbirth. And then, they got kicked out of the garden and everything like that. So let's go on down to Genesis 4:1, where let's take the literal translation first, because the literal translation is closest to the Septuagint, which is one of more so the original. Okay. So it's going to sound a little different from what you're used to in the KJV or the NIV, whatever you read. And the man knew his wife. When you see the word knew his wife, that means they consummated their marriage. They were, producing children. And she conceiveth and beareth Cain, and said, I have gotten a man by Jehovah. Mind you, this is the literal translation. So Eve thought she had a baby by God. The King James Version says, and Adam knew his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord. Sounds different. Then if you go on to your NIV version, it'll really water it down and say, oh, I have gotten a man with help from the Lord. See, these versions are really going to be watered down. It's best if you stay with the literal translation, or if you have your Strong's Concordance, or if you go even back to the Septuagint to get the actual meaning from the text. So regardless, Eve had a child, a boy. The firstborn son was Cain. All right. That seed of that firstborn was the seed of the serpent. How do you know that? When you're going back up, I will put enmity. That's what God said, between the woman and the serpent, your offspring, the serpent's offspring, and the woman's offspring. That's right there in Genesis 3:14 through 15. Everybody understand that? Okay. This is not really broken down a lot. I don't know why. I guess because, this type of teaching will really open people's eyes, because what are the characteristics of these people? We just see in the previous slide the nature of Cain. His nature was to do wrong. He had choices to do right, but sin was crouching at his door, meaning he had to always fight. Sin was always there around him. He probably had urges to murder, urges to, just live lawless, just have these things where he had to overcome them, but it was possible. And you see how much even God still loved that seed. He's still telling him, if you do right, you'll be accepted. But if you don't, your desire is to do wrong, but you must rule over it. Okay. Let's see. All right. Now, so we went over those two translations where we're talking about two offsprings. And that is why Cain's nature, he had to overcome those urges that he had to do wrong. But, you can overcome it. Now, let's see. After all of that, after that, Cain, he still felt rejected. So we have the Most High God telling him, okay, you can do this. You just have to, stay on the right path. I will accept your offering if you do right. If you don't, I won't do it. And he's giving him these ways that he can overcome his sinful or his nature. Okay. Remember, every seed produces after its own kind. Every seed produces after its own kind. So he had those traits of his father. Okay. Cain, he still felt rejected. Even by God, he felt rejected by God. Even God, after God told him that if he makes a choice to do right, he will accept him. The text continues with Cain saying to his brother Abel, hey, let's go out to the field. While they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother, and we know that he killed him. That was his nature. He couldn't overcome that nature. And after this, we see Cain's resentment toward his brother, and influenced him and lured him to the field with the intention to kill him. God confronted Cain about his actions, and Cain responded, of course, we know this line. I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper? Am I my brother's keeper? Look at the audacity on Cain to say to the creator of the universe. Really? Then the Most High God then proceeds to punish Cain by cursing him. And Cain replies to his punishment in verse 13 that is too much to bear. Too much. He can't handle it. So we have Cain, a man that cannot take what he dishes out. He can't take it. So let's see. You get this not Cain, of course, just the disappointment. All right. So then, Cain fears anyone who will see him and want to kill him. And, God still has mercy on him, on Cain, and says, okay, well, I give you the mark of Cain, which no one can, murder you if they see you out in the field. Cain left and went to the land of Nod, which was east of Eden. I just want to go back to this slide and talk about Cain for a minute. We see Cain's need for admiration and his lack of empathy. He actually told God, am I my brother's keeper? Look at the lack of empathy. You just murdered your own brother. And there's no repentance. There's no any of that. It's just a smart aleck reply, am I my brother's keeper? Look at the audacity. And I wanted to talk about the sense of entitlement. You know, the Most High God, there are standards. And just because he wasn't able to give his best offering, he thought that God would take it anyway. And I just feel like this is such a scenario where you're dealing with these narcissists, you're dealing with these traits in people today. I mean, this is an ancient situation, right? I mean, how many centuries does Cain and Abel go back? I don't even know. But think about how this relates to us today. Think about the sense of entitlement that people have, where, you know, I will do something halfway and let's see what I can get away with. Or the grandiosity that people may display. Oh, I'm better than this person or that person. I'm the firstborn. So, you know, this is already mine anyway. That's the attitude that Cain had. I just think it's so ironic. And then when Cain gets his punishment, then he's like, oh, I can't deal with this. This is too much for me. What? Think about this in your own life. I mean, I feel like it is such a lack of accountability also. And I just feel like it's fascinating to me. Yeah, and I'll go into more things if you already have my book, When Satan Plays Matchmaker. Okay. But I just wanted to at least do a breakdown with Cain and Abel, because I think it is something that everyone needs to know, especially what was in Cain's lineage that actually had that nature about him that he had to overcome, but he didn't. Okay. All right. So let me get my water. We see here that the first will be last and the last will be first. Think about how Cain was the firstborn. He was set to have all of the inheritance. The firstborn was a big deal, firstborn son. He was the first in the world, right? He was, by the world standards is what I mean. But in the spiritual realm, according to the Most High God, he was the last. He didn't accept the offering. He rejected it. This is why I'm just, that scripture here, Matthew 20:16, the last will be first and the first will be last. Cain was a master builder on this earth. He was doing, the building, it was incredible. But think about his spiritual life. He was last spiritually. Okay. So I wanted to get on here and just add to another teaching, add to this playlist of deep revelation. This is going to be a part 2 to this one. So look for it in the next couple of days. And I want to say thank you so very much for being here and for learning and for actually being hungry for the true word. There's so much into these scriptures that is overlooked and not necessarily broken down. Okay. So I just want to say thank you so much for actually having the heart and wanting to learn and being here with me and letting me, just share what I know. Right. So I will see you on the next one, which I will be talking more about the serpent seed lineage and how it relates to people and non-people today. All right. Bye.